My earliest memories are rage, the smell of a beer can, the smell of the ashtray beside the beer can, when my dad would come home late from the bars, and the sound of his boots walking on our floor, pacing back and forth. If the dishes were dirty, if things weren't put back right, he would wake us all up out in the middle of the night while he was drunk, standing over us yelling. I remember the spittle that would come from his face. I remember the look in his eyes as he would yell at us. And the next morning, everything would be changed. Or whenever he began to sober up, then it was the good dad. Then it was the warm dad, the loving dad. We were probably the poorest in the community, and I wasn't ashamed of that as much as I was ashamed of what actually went on behind closed doors. Around the age of 8, I saw my dad raping my mom after a night of destroying the house. I walked in after school, got off the bus, and went in the house. As I got into the living room of our trailer and the screaming from my mom grew louder and louder, I grabbed hold of the doorknob and I just gave it a little push, and it opened up. And that's when I saw my dad raping my mom. My mom saw the door swing open, and she looked at me with like these eyes that said, "Get out, Joe, just get out." And my dad followed her gaze, and he looked at me with so much hate. And he looked at me and he said, "Go get the knife." Everybody growing up knows what the knife is. You know, there's always that knife that you're not supposed to touch. And as I walked towards the kitchen, I just heard my mom crying out, "No, Joe, no, no, Joe, no." And the cries, even though I got further away, they pierced deeper and deeper into my heart. And I just kept hearing my dad say, "Get the knife, get the knife." So I walked to the kitchen, and there was the knife, the big, sharp butcher's knife is what we knew it as. And beside it, in that same drawer, was a butter knife. And I thought, a way that I can get out of this is to act like I don't know what my dad is talking about. So I reached in the drawer and I grabbed the butter knife, and I brought it back through the living room to my parents' bedroom and opened up my hand to give him the knife, and he knocked it out of my hand, slammed the door, and finished what he was doing. The drinking continued, the violence continued, and when I was around the age of 13, my mom decided enough was enough, and she sought a divorce from my dad. She showed up at school one day. We drove to Nashville, Tennessee to stay at a YWCA shelter for battered and abused families. I did not have any hope. I didn't know even what joy was. I didn't even know how to have fun or how to laugh or just how to lighten up. So they sent me to a psychiatric hospital. And at the end of the 3 months of being in the psychiatric hospital, when the welfare ran out, they gave me a choice to go live in a boys' home or go live with my Nana. And I said, I'll move in with my Nana. From 9th grade through 12th grade, I lived with my Nana. And I was a punk kid to some. I was a great kid to some. I was a class clown. I liked to make people laugh. But I always had a mask on. I always pretended that nothing had ever bad had happened to me in my life, because what I wanted above everything was just to be normal. About a month after I graduated from high school, a friend invited me to go to church with them. And I'd been working construction, and I'm, filth and foul all day long, and MF and GD, and just that kind of language was part of who I was. It was my identity. Showed up at church, and there are these teenagers sitting around this group talking with the youth pastor with their Bibles open, and they were talking about God like they knew Him. That was something I never encountered all my life. And I began to sense this drawing me, this pull, and I couldn't shake it. I left, I went home that night, and I thought, gosh, I really want to go back. I experienced something that I'd never experienced before. And after about several weeks of visiting, the youth pastor came and talked to me, and he explained to me that Jesus died on the cross for my sins. So it was that night, on a Wednesday night, that I trusted Jesus Christ to be my Savior. The youth pastor didn't know that I was hurting. He didn't know I was abused as a kid. He knew that I was a sinner and that I needed Jesus. And that's all he needed to share with me, because that, in truth, that is what I needed the most. I didn't need to forgive my dad at that moment. I needed to receive forgiveness in that moment. I needed to be forgiven for my sin, and I understood that. I got to marry the pastor's daughter of the church that I was saved in. And we have 2 beautiful baby girls, and I'm serving as the student pastor at First Redeemer Church. There are people who will be watching this who have been abused, who have been hurt, and they struggle with forgiving. You've got to take your focus off of your old life and focus on Christ, because He promises to take care of the rest. And that's what He's done with me in my life. And that's how He's blessed me, is the more I focus on Christ, the more peace I have.